Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th Canto, Chapter 18. King Yayati regains his youth. This is the last verse of that chapter, text 51. This is a very complicated history with so many twists and turns and a dramatic conclusion. Evam Varsha Sahasrani Manasrastar Manasukam Vidatano Pinat Lipyat Sarva Boma Karindriyai Evam Varsha Sahasrani Manasrastar Manasukam Vidadano Pinat Lipyat Sarva Boma Karindriyai Evam Varsha Sahasrani Manasrastar Manasukam Vidadano Pinat Lipyat Sarva Boma Karindriyai In this way, Varsha Sahasrani, for 1,000 years, Manasrastai, by the mind and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, Manasukam, temporary happiness created by the mind, Vididana, executing. Api. Although. Na atriyat. Could not be satisfied. Sarvabhauma. Although he was the king of the entire world. Kat indriyai. Because of possessing impure senses. Translation. Although Maharaj Yayati was the king of the entire world, and he engaged his mind and 5 senses in enjoying material possessions for 1,000 years, he was unable to be satisfied. Purport. The Kad Indriya, or unpurified senses, can be purified if one engages the senses and the mind in Krishna consciousness. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvaina nirmalam. One must be freed from all designations. When one identifies himself with the material world, his senses are impure. But when one achieves spiritual realization and identifies himself as a servant of the Lord, his senses are purified immediately. Engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord is called Bhakti. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. One may enjoy the senses for many thousands of years, but unless one purifies the senses, one cannot be happy. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Yayati Regains His Youth. Om Agyanatimanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are various ways we can approach this verse. I could go over with you the whole history of King Yayati. How many of you know this history? Raise your hands. You've read it. How many are, shall we say, have you taken a deep dive immersion into it? Raise your hand. Yes. It's very instructive. So he's taken the youth of one of his sons, Puru, because he was cursed by his father-in-law. We can go way back. But we'll focus today on knowledge of the spiritual world as necessary so that you can actually be satisfied. You see, material existence means you're undergoing a process. I don't know how many of you thought about that. You're undergoing a process of using the mind and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and the 5 working senses to achieve goals. And those goals involve manipulating the material energy, the inferior potency. As you know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he has an inferior energy and a superior energy. So material life means a process by which we seek satisfaction by manipulating the inferior potency. Now, the living entity, as you know, is also of the superior quality, the superior energy quality. But the living entity has forgotten that and bewildered is trying to enjoy the inferior energy, even though the living entity is the superior energy. Of course, more honing down more precisely, the living entity is the marginal potency, Tatastha Shakti. That means the living entity can go either way. Immerse in material absorption or immerse in spiritual absorption. Just like the beach. The beach. Sometimes the beach is covered by water and sometimes it's not. So the marginal potency of Krishna is like that. The living entities are like that. They have a choice. And they can be ambushed by the material energy and overpowered, or you can be ambushed by the spiritual energy and overpowered. It depends on how you set yourself up, how you situate yourself. That determines how you'll be swept away, either this way or that way. But because you're tiny, you must be carried away. You must be swept away. It's all about the process you're undergoing. Are you undergoing the process of material entanglement, or are you undergoing the process of spiritual development? So look at your life in that way. What's the process you're undergoing? People will tell you, oh, you're undergoing employment, or you're undergoing uni education, or you're undergoing partnering, or you're undergoing COVID, or you're undergoing job searching. But they don't see the overall process that you're undergoing, which is material existence. Material existence is chewing you up and grinding you. And we seek pleasure while being chewed up and ground. So it's a very Bhakti scientific way of looking at yourself and your existence. That you're being processed by a process. You're undergoing a process. And how does that process begin? How is it happening now? Where does it lead? These are questions that you must ask and answer if you want a truly responsible, honest life. A real human life means answering those questions. What's the point of my undergoing the process of material existence? Especially since material existence denies you real pleasure. Now you'll say, well, what do you mean by that? Denies real pleasure. We've had some good moments. We've had some flashes of delight. But from the standpoint of Shastra, real pleasure has no end. And we all know that whatever the process of material existence offers you, it has a beginning and an end. So, from the Vedic point of view, how can you call that real pleasure? But we're desperate, right? We're desperate to get it how we can, where we can, from whom we can. We're desperate people. Sign me up for the process of material existence as long as there's some hope. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. I'll keep driving. Way at the end of the tunnel, I see the light. And when you get to the end of the tunnel, the light turns out just to be a mirage. And everyone exhorts you, just keep driving, keep going, you'll get to the end of the tunnel. So again, think of when you are going to write your autobiography, write that you're undergoing the process of material existence and what is the result. And evaluate, is it all worth it? Now people will say, well, we don't know anything else, so therefore you gotta do what you gotta do. Just as I tell people I thought when I was 21, well, this material existence is not very nice and not all that everyone celebrates it for, but it seems to be the only game in town, so you gotta play it. Even though it's a tasteless game and a losing game, but at least it's a game. So this is settling for less. I'll settle for the material process, even though I know it's faulty. I'll concede that there's nothing better to do. So this is why it's so important for our devotees to start trying to understand the spiritual world. Because unless you understand there's a better world indeed, you're not going to actually give up the false pleasures of this world. Now sometimes people say, by you Bhakti people and other spiritual people, focusing on another world, you're neglecting the problems of this world. You're being distracted away from reality. How is your knowledge of another world, how is that going to help solve the problems of this world here and now? Why siphon off the energies and concentration needed to fix this world? Why siphon that off and focus on some other world? How do you answer that? What Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita synthesizes this world and the other world, and does it in such a way that you effectively solve the problems of this world while making progress to the other world. Now, why should you think there's another world? Just because you're told? Just like according to Western theology, if you're a believer, you go to heaven. But as all of you know, you were never given, if you were a churchgoer, which is doubtful in New Zealand, you were never given any information about heaven. Just like my mother, she's 96 next month. I'll be going home. When I was younger, I would poke her a bit. Can you tell me about home? What goes on there? Is there a door to the house? Does the house have a back door? Screens? Or I don't do that now. It's too elderly for that. So that's what you're told. Go to heaven. Then you turn to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and find out there are heavenly planets, but they're still in the material world. Is it so far-fetched to accept that there are heavenly planets and hellish planets? Just look at this Earth planet, what you know, what's right before your eyes. You'll find hellish places and places that are relatively more heavenly, at least more than the hellish places. You could be born in North Korea, you could be living in Sudan, or places where there's just non-stop upheaval and violence. Or you could be born in New Zealand. Heavenly. So why is it so difficult just to consider that there could be hellish planets and heavenly planets? And as the Shastra instructs us, the Earth is in the middle planetary system. Middle means a bit hellish and a bit heavenly, alternating, both going on at the same time. So what Krishna is offering us in Bhagavad Gita, and what is elaborated upon in Srimad Bhagavatam, is how to go beyond heaven, beyond the heavenly planets. Why should you accept that? Now, if I ask someone here, do you accept that you're not the body, you're spirit, soul? Of course, everyone will raise their hand. Yes, yes, I agree. So you accept that there's a superior energy beyond matter, beyond the matter of your body and mind. The body and mind you accept is the inferior potency, just like other matter. Therefore, at the time of death, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The body is finished. And you, the superior energy, go to another material body. So, you can look at this world as the homeland of the material body and mind. Shouldn't there be a homeland of the superior energy, of the spirit soul? Or are you trying to tell me that the spirit soul is just trapped in material existence with nowhere else to go? This is logic. Logic is not the proof. The Shastra is the proof. But logic can, when used properly, can bring us closer to the truth. Just like you've read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the element of logic called Shaka Chandra Nyaya. A child is very small and can't crane their neck up to see the moon in the sky. So the mother says, see those two branches of the tree? Between the two branches of the tree is the moon. So that's something down near the child's level, down near the child's height. So the child can look at what is nearby, what is in the same vicinity. Oh, the tree branches, yes. Oh, through the tree branches I see the moon. So logic is not the ultimate proof, but it can be used to bring you nearer to the ultimate truth. So if you accept that there's a spiritual energy, so many people will say that, oh yeah, there's a spiritual energy. I can feel the vibrations. Okay, where is the territory, the capital, the homeland of the spiritual energy? You know where the homeland of the material body and mind is as you undergo the process of material existence. So where is the homeland of the spirit soul? Where do you get information of that? Unless you get information of the land, so to speak, of the spirit soul, you won't actually give up the material affliction. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, parastasmat tupavonyo vikta vikta sanatana. There's something else. There's another place which is not created and annihilated again and again. This is the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has explained about the annihilations at the end of the day of Brahma and at the end of the lifetime of Brahma. But he says there's something else that's not subject to all those cycles of creation and annihilation. When everything in the material manifestation is annihilated, still that spiritual realm remains as it is. So we should take an interest in this. I want to find out about that territory. And then you can read in Bhagavatam and other Shastras how that territory is that all spiritual territory, what goes on there. And then if you want to be skeptical, you can ask yourself, could all these persons be just making this up? Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Shukadeva Goswami, they're all making it up. As if they had nothing better to do. Let's hallucinate and that way bewilder people in the Kali Yuga who don't know any better. The more you educate yourself, the more you realize this is too much for anyone to fabricate. That was my first impression when starting to read Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality God. I said, wait a minute, I know the scope and reach of the human intellect. I've studied with the greatest brains on the planet. I know how far and how deep the human intellect can get. This is beyond any human being's ability to fabricate. So, from the very beginning, I loved to read Krishna book. And when I was reading about the spiritual world, with my limited knowledge at the time, I was thinking, this sounds so wonderful. I better hurry up and go there before it gets overcrowded. Everyone's going to want to go. I was thinking, like a New Yorker living in a city of 20 million, when people find out about this latest nightclub, they're all going to want to go. I've got to reserve my spot before the place gets overcrowded. They don't let any more persons in. So just think about your accepted conceptions that are motivating you. You all accept that you're spirit, soul, you're not the body and mind. There may be bewilderment from time to time by the body and mind, but you still have an understanding, at least theoretically, that you're not the body and mind. That means you accept your spirit, soul, yes? So where is the dimension, the territory, the homeland of the spirit soul? You're undergoing the process of material existence. How do you undergo the process of spiritual existence? And what will most people tell you? You just believe. But that's not what Srimad Bhagavatam Chaitanya Charitamrita did tell you. There's a way to undergo the process of permanent, eternal spiritual residence. Just like there's a process to get PR, permanent residency in New Zealand. I never underwent the full process, as you know. I was never here long enough. The required time for permanent residency. Still, I applied for it. This is way back in, 95 or 96. And so actually, the immigration minister called me up. I don't know. I was shocked. This is back when everyone had landlines. So the landline rang and I picked up the phone. It was immigration minister. You know, you're applying for permanent residency, but you haven't spent the required amount of time here. What do we make of that? What are we going to do? I said, well, here's the facts. I'm a refugee from New York City. He burst out laughing. All right, you're in. I don't think the system operates that way these days, but things were much more personal in New Zealand back in the mid-90s. So there's a process for becoming a permanent resident here. Some of you currently have gone through that process. But what is the process for becoming an eternal resident of the spiritual world? You can't just say, I'm spiritual, and not know anything about the spiritual world. But if we become dull, we think, not much of it. We don't take the time to investigate. Just like someone who wants permanent residency in New Zealand, they have to investigate. do a lot of research online, get an immigration lawyer, and get a guru to explain to you the ins and outs of the process. So similarly, why not find out what is the process for going to the spiritual world, and what is the spiritual world? Otherwise, how are you going to be strong enough to resist the pull of the inferior energy, which is always trying to drag you down? I think you can recognize that phenomenon. There's an energy that's always trying to drag you down, pull you back into its clutches. That's the illusory energy. So unless you know the process for situating yourself in the spiritual energy, the internal potency of Krishna, how are you going to stay away from the grip, the treacherous grip of the illusory energy? Which is, I don't think you have quicksand in New Zealand, do you? But you heard about it. Everyone knows what quicksand is? Maybe they have it in Australia, not New Zealand. They have it in Australia. So you think you're walking on sand. The sand is what, kind of moist, swampy, and it sucks you down. So you may wonder, why is it? Here I am trying to push ahead with my spiritual life, but it always feels like something is pulling me back. You have to be pragmatic about where you are and the processes you're undergoing. You're undergoing the process of material existence, yes, but you're remedying that situation in the only way that can solve the problem. You're integrating yourself or reintegrating yourself into the spiritual energy. So you have to always keep up enough momentum so that you're not pulled back. So that's the price you pay for entering the spiritual world. You're generating enough momentum to escape the inertia, to escape the clutches of the material energy. Now, in the immature stage of bhakti, we sometimes think, oh, I'm tired of pushing ahead. I'm tired of generating momentum. Wow, I just want to let whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happen. Let it be. If I'm meant to be spiritual, it'll happen. If I'm meant to be material, it'll happen. I'm just tired of endeavoring in the 9 processes of devotional service. Kind of control your mind and senses. You have to live a pure lifestyle. How many people are doing that? Maybe I should just go back to being the way I was, but I'll be a nicer person this time. And then what happens? You fall back into the material energy, and what does the material energy do? Puts you to work in Rajoguna, passion, and the only way you can be rewarded for your passionate endeavors is through Tamoguna, ignorance, intoxication, because the Rajoguna doesn't satisfy you. And you are not going to go up to Sattva-guna, mode of goodness. No, the only option is down to the mode of ignorance, intoxication. So what about this Rajoguna? Why won't the mode of passion, Rajoguna, satisfy us? Here you have the testimony of Maharaj Yayati. He had it all. He was so powerful that even after he was cursed by his father-in-law for an apparent infraction, even after he was cursed, but then was given some relief from the curse by his father-in-law, who happened to be Shukracharya, the priest of the Asuras. So Shukracharya had cursed him, as you know. You've let my daughter down, therefore I curse you to be prematurely old and invalid. But Yayati was still in prime of his adulthood, not the prime of his youth, but the prime of his adulthood. You could, in Kali Yuga terms, you could say he was probably like in his 30s, the equivalent. And to be cursed, to be an elderly with invalidity, in other words, be cursed like to have a body like an 80-year-old when you're 30? Horrible. And Yayati appealed to him, to Shukracharya, please, I'm an young adult. I haven't fulfilled all my desires. I haven't fully culminated my adulthood, in which I'm supposed to expend all my material desires. I'm still into it. Shukracharya listened. If I take away his youth and curse him with premature invalidity and old age, what about my daughter? My daughter will suffer because her husband is an old man and sick. What about my daughter? What about her desires? Shukracharya is thinking very selfishly. What's this going to do for the family? All right. Here's what we'll do, Yayati. You can ask someone to exchange your old age for their youth. Now you would think, well, who's going to do that? If we say, Trent, give your youth, 19 years old, 20 now, you just turned 20, right? Give your 20-year-old body youthfulness to someone who's 85 and take their old age and invalidity. Wow! Suddenly you realize how it's my youth. It's the greatest gift. I'm not ready to be to have an 85-year-old body. I got things to do, places to go, people to meet. Devotional service to perform with full energy. So who is going to accept Yayati's old age and give him their youth? Who's going to do that? But Shukracharya knew, you've got a few sons. One of your sons, out of obligation to the father, will agree. So Yayati turned to the oldest son, Yadu. Yadu, will you please accept my premature old age and invalidity and give me your youth? What did Yadu say? He knew the order of in Vedic civilization, everything is duty bound. It's hard for us to accept that. Every step you take, there's some duty or obligation associated with it. Whereas we think we're so superior today as human beings because every step we take is totally unregulated, and we think that's being authentic. You can be sure whenever someone says these days that they're being authentic, you can be sure they're just imitating someone else. So Yadu was mindful, certainly, of Dharma. Vedic Dharma means the Father, his order is to be accepted, just like the order of the Guru. Of course, in Kali Yuga, people don't care for the order of the Father or the order of the Guru. Everything is just do what you want and have no regrets. Not only do what you want, but don't have any regrets about it. Act boldly. Act in a clear-cut way for your own enhancement. And that will be the best thing for others. They'll see that you're inspired by acting in this way, supposedly. And therefore they'll be inspired. Oh, you're a real go-getter. You take what you want. That's supposed to uplift everyone. Wow, you've got the ultimate compliment. You've got a real lust for life. Anyone here been told that? Which one is this one? So reminded? You've been told that?
Yes, the book is yours.
So Yadu was aware of traditional Dharma. You still see remnants of that in Indian families today. The order of the Father is taken very seriously. But Yadu had a reason to refuse. He knew that in his dynasty, the Supreme Personality of Godhead would appear. That's why another name for Krishna is Yadunath, or Yaduvir, the best of the Yadu dynasty. That dynasty comes from Yadu, this particular Yadu that we're talking about. He knew in the future, in my line, is going to come the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't want to delay that by being an old man. Now, Yadu knew that his father, Yayati, was going to be able to give back the youth and accept the old age that he had bestowed on Yadu. Yadu knew, my father will certainly, at the right time, give me back my youth. But I don't want to delay the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because if I take on his premature old age, yes, down the line, I'll get my youth back, but time will have passed. There'll be a delay. Furthermore, I want to be renounced. And I've got to, generally speaking, go through the Grihastha ashram, have a regulated life, and then retire from family life. I don't want to delay this whole process. Let me take on the family life, learn the lessons I've got to learn, go through what I got to go through, and then emerge a free man later in life. I don't want to delay that whole process. And what to speak of delaying, which of course you can't delay the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna appears when he wants, how he wants. But he presents a schedule. He doesn't have to follow it, but he does present a schedule, as you've read in Bhagavad Gita. Once every day of Brahma. So Yadu had his reasons for refusing. These reasons were not adharma. They were not irreligious. He was thinking of devotional service. I don't want to delay my full immersion in devotional service, free of family responsibilities. I don't want to delay that, and I want to make sure that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is appearing on schedule in my line. So I've got to develop my line. Have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. In that line is going to come Krishna. So I've got to play my role in this. So Yadu is glorified for his refusal of the order of his father, just as the 4 Kumaras are glorified by refusing the order of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma ordered the 4 Kumaras, get married, have families, populate the universe. They said, no. They saw a different life for themselves. They didn't want to get entangled. That's why they keep themselves as prepubescents. They keep themselves as little children before the age of puberty, because they don't want any distractions in their self-realization. So just as the 4 Kumaras are worshipped for their refusing the father's order, similarly Yadu is. Queen Kunti mentions him in her prayers in the first canto. She says, some say, Krishna, that you've appeared for this reason or that reason. One of the reasons they say you have appeared is to glorify the dynasty coming from Yadu. So you really can't appreciate the full impact of Yadu's refusal without understanding the whole structure of Vedic civilization, the obligations, the reciprocations, the duties. So for him to say no to his father was quite monumental, but it was correct for the reasons he gave. Otherwise, if he didn't have those devotional reasons, it would be adharma. It would be irreligious. So then what happened? What could Yayati do? Number 1 son's refused. And Yayati wants to offload his old age and invalidity. Yayati wants to enjoy. So he turns to 2 other sons. And they just flatly refused for mundane reasons. No way. We want to enjoy. Forget it. We're not, forget it, Dad. We're not taking your old age. You crazy? We want to enjoy our senses. So their refusal had nothing to do with anything devotional, no devotional service. It just was pure selfishness. Hell no. So these 2 sons are used as an example of adharma, of a gross violation. They refused the order of the father simply for selfish reasons, unlike Yadu. 1 son left. So Yayati turns to Puru. And Puru first expresses his acceptance of the sacredness of the order of the father. Now, interestingly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes one Bengali shloka, Janame Janame Sabe Pita Matapai, Krishna Guru Nahi Mile Bhajarihai. That in any birth, Janma, you can get a father and a mother. But only in the human form of life can you get Guru and Krishna. But anyway, these 2 boys, as we said, they refused, and Puru first pointed out the glories of accepting the order of the father. Of course, implicit in the Vedic systems urging you to accept the order of the Father is that the Father should know what he's doing and know how to provide real value, real knowledge. That's the implicit reality. That's why in the 5th canto, where Lord Rishabhdev says what? Who knows? Don't be a mother, don't be a father, don't be a teacher. Don't take any responsibility for anyone unless you can save that dependent from repeated birth and death. Very stern instruction. Don't have any kind of dependence. Don't be a guru, don't be a teacher, don't be a mother, don't be a father, unless you can save that dependent of yours from repeated birth and death. So that is the essence of the Vedic system. So after glorifying the order of the Father, Puru then criticizes himself. I'm at fault. There are different classes of sons. The first class son anticipates the order of the Father, and even before the Father says it, the first class son is already in action, accepting the instruction of the Father. I'm not that. You shouldn't have had to ask me to accept your old age and for me to give you my youth. So I'm a second-class son. You asked me, and I agreed immediately. But that's second class. Third-class son is one who follows your order, but does it in a grudging way. Yeah, all right, it's a real bad deal here. Yeah. Fourth class son, of course, is the one who doesn't follow the father's order at all. The fourth class son says, like the previous two sons, no way. So it's interesting that Puru, and who is still celebrated for accepting his father's old age, he said, I'm second class, I should be first class. And this classifications also applies to guru-disciple relationship. So in this way, Puru accepted Yayati's premature old age and invalidity. And now Yayati has spent 1,000 years enjoying the material energy. He's a complicated character because, as you'll hear in previous verses, as Prabhupada explains in the previous purport, King Yayati, although externally seeming very fond of material enjoyment, was internally thinking of becoming an eternal servant of the Lord. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this, that Yayati was heading toward Dasyaras, love of Krishna and servitude. So, Yayati is king of the entire world. We get so proud if we can just be king of one of the rooms in our house. Or queen of our flat. And he engaged his mind and senses in the process. He submitted to undergoing the process of material existence. And what does sometimes in the word for words, Prabhupada put some enhancement there. And so, it's not in the translation, but it's there in the word for words. Manasukam. What is manasukha? Temporary happiness created by the mind. Now that's a point that takes a lot of deliberation. How material happiness is created by the mind. So therefore, if you have an uncontrolled mind, that means your mind is all the time manufacturing material happiness, plans for material happiness, which agitate the mind and deprive you of being peaceful. So this manasukha, this happiness manufactured by the mind, that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for someone who is free from the mental concoction of material happiness and distress, they actually are properly situated in yoga. So you can view your mind as a concoction machine. It's loaded, it's had downloaded into you, as I often explain. So much has been downloaded into it about happiness concoctions. So you've got your mind overloaded with happiness concoctions. You've got your hormones, which are driving you crazy. And then you think you're free. It's amazing. It's a miracle of idiocy. So if you can catch your mind doing this, generating, manufacturing, fabricating plans for material happiness, then you can start to control your mind. At least be aware that's what it's doing. It's flooding you with impressions, perceptions, ideas, even intuitions. My intuition tells me this could be good. So what is the solution? Because you cannot get rid of material desires by experiencing them, as Yayati is telling you from his own example. In the next chapter, he's going to tell his wife an allegory, just like Narada Muni did to Prachina Bharsha, King Prachina Bharsha in the 4th canto, the Puranjana allegory. How many of you remember the Puranjana allegory? So Yayati, to bring about detachment in his wife, is going to tell her an allegory of the he-goat and the she-goat. And how the he-goat was very handsome and very competent in reproductive process. And the she-goat was very shapely. And the he-goat worked hard to please the she-goat. So anyway, that's the next chapter. So Yayati, after he gives her that allegory of the he-goat and she-goat to bring about detachment in her, he concludes by saying, I've been trying to enjoy for thousands of years and I'm still not satisfied. So Yayati is presenting the scientific reality that indulgence will not lead to satisfaction. But we're so miserly. The Sanskrit word is kripana. We're so miserly that if we just get a glimpse, a splinter, a fragment of so-called satisfaction, we make a big deal out of it. You can just visualize you're hungry, and then on the floor you see 2 grains of rice. You jump on it. But others are also seeing the 2 grains of rice, and they are all jumping on it. So you just basically have like a rugby battle over, yeah, I got it, I got the 2 grains of rice. And then some sadhu comes along and says, what are you arguing about? Why are you groveling on the floor? There's nothing there. What do you mean there's nothing there? There's 2 grains of rice. And he took it, or she took it. It's mine. So this way, people can get very sensitive when you tell them that material happiness is an illusion. What do you mean? I remember last month, one Saturday night was great. They don't accept, due to ignorance, that they're settling for such an inferior product. So they often ask the question, why can't you have both? Right? How many of you thought like that at first? Gabby, Chittamohini, who else on this side? Trent, Anantanath. Garanga Mahan's too saintly to think like that. Anyone else? Krishnamari? She won't admit. She'll just smile. Give the famous smile. So often people say, wait a minute, yeah. I hear what you're saying, yeah, okay. Material happiness is, not all it's supposed to be, and the spiritual happiness is better, but, why not both? So then you have to explain that if the superior product is so superior indeed, you don't have any room in your life, you don't have any bandwidth for the inferior product. And then people say, oh, wait. They can't conceive that the superior product is so much better, that you have no headspace, bandwidth, or no opportunity in your life for what is inferior. How can anything be that good? What they're implicitly thinking is that spiritual experience must be a slightly bit better than material experience. Therefore, why not have both? So I was explaining, when was that? Maybe it was at our Monday program. If I say to Arthur, get on the floor with little toy trucks and play. Wait a minute, he said, maybe your son he has outgrown that. But I was explaining how I remember I was a 5-year-old kid. 5 years old. My brother was 3.5. And we'd get down on the floor and we loved playing with toy trucks. And especially when you're playing with the toy trucks, you make truck noises. We had a whole repertoire of truck sounds. Diesel. That was part of the authentic experience. It's like Gopal Guru's son, Arjuna. First thing he told me last weekend was, we went to Las Vegas, we fired guns. I shot a gun. Dad fired 5 guns. Automatic rifle. He was, wow. And then Dad brought back some shells. So when he's, of course, there could be gun lovers of all ages, but anyway, the point is he was really over the moon. I shot a gun. And of course, most of us would be thinking, all right, how much was the bill for all this? Don't ask Gopal. So, if we say to Purnananda, we got some little dolls for you to play with. Someone told me that when the little girls play with dolls, they make sounds. Anyone? Yes? Can you imitate? But they make sounds. What are the sounds indicating?
They're just like pretending they're the dough.
They pretend.
Pretending they're the dough speaking.
Oh, they
Like imitating a human.
they're what?
Imitating a human.
Imitating a human.
Yeah.
But they make special sounds, right? Someone demonstrated to me. I can't remember. Does anyone remember who did a demonstration? Was you, Radha Prasad? No, he was there. Gabby, do you remember? Because girls don't play with dolls anymore, is that it? Okay, how many of you played with trucks? Kadirvan, you didn't play with dolls?
Yeah, but I don't remember the sounds.
Oh.
It's too long ago.
Someone made it was like a high-pitched sound. Now you remember, right? So if I say to you now, go, do both. Be the way you are now and play with some dolls and make the sounds. Play with some trucks and make the sounds. Do both. Crazy? I got better things to do. So that's how I explain when people say, why can't you do both? Say, all right, start playing with some toy trucks, start playing with some toy dolls. Do both. So Yayati is demonstrating that he cannot deal with his material desires by experience. There'll be no peace. Peace comes from satisfaction and fulfillment. But he's telling you his own testimony here. I've been trying for 1,000 years. And that's just of that lifetime. It's obviously a different yuga when human beings live much longer. All right, so trying to fulfill desires doesn't do it. Everyone here will accept that. But won't time take care of it all? No. Time, the passing of time, will not destroy material desires. The passing of time will destroy your material body and destroy your material mind, the gross and subtle body, but it will not destroy your desires. That's why at the cosmic annihilation, you still retain your impressions from your lifetime, and then at the time of cosmic creation, you're injected into a suitable body that matches your contaminations, that stick with you, that survive time. So just see how the system is operating. Just see how the process of material existence is operating. You can't fulfill your material desires and get over them, nor will time destroy them. You might think, oh, when you get older and your desires change. No, they go with you to your next birth. Time destroys your body, but the desires are still there, either on the surface or buried within. Because the subtle body is the template for your next gross body. So Yayati is giving you valuable experience. He pursued the manasukha, the temporary happiness created by the mind for 1,000 years. Varsha Sahasrani. He engaged his equipment, his tools, his mind and his senses, but he was unable to be satisfied. All right, any questions?